case is now solved, and it's so much more ugly and more psychotic than any of us could have possibly envisioned. Essentially, she got caught filing a sham in the New York Times, the PR firms. Brian Friedman must be having an absolute field day. And Jones Work PR, which is run by Stephanie Jones, she's the Coffee and Adderall is Life woman, okay, is doing the PR for Wayfarer Studios. That's Justin Baldoni, Steve Sarowitz. She is doing, her firm is doing the PR for this film. But she's not personally managing that PR. She has someone under her named Jennifer Abel, who you see there, and she is dealing with this quote unquote smaller account. And by smaller account, I mean that while Stephanie Jones is out flying around with Jeff Bezos and his soon to be wife, Jennifer Abel is dealing with this little baby account that only earns them $20K a month for the firm. Jennifer Abel decides that she wants to leave this firm and she wants to start her own firm. Justin Baldoni and Steve Sarowitz are like, we are going with you if you're going independent because you're the only one we even know at this firm, and we're happy to stay your little account. And Stephanie Jones is like, nah, that is not happening. I am Stephanie Jones. I'm married to a bigwig over at WME. No one leaves Stephanie. I mean, we're talking like toxic relationship with your...
The case is now solved, and it's so much more ugly and more psychotic than any of us could have possibly envisioned. Essentially, she got caught filing a sham lawsuit. Blake Lively arrested. Yep, you heard that right. The internet is in absolute shock after bombshell reports claimed the Gossip Girl star was taken in for lying to the court. A police chief just spoke out after the arrest, and what he revealed is changing everything. Turns out that Blake filed a sham lawsuit only to cover her tracks and lie to the court, and the judge is not happy about it. Fans are now questioning everything Blake said, and Justin Baldwin might be getting the last word after all. So what really happened behind the scenes, and what's this about a sham lawsuit? Let's find out. So over the weekend, fans found out that Blake filed a super shady lawsuit before publicly accusing Justin of mistreatment, and that single piece of news right there has changed the entire course of the case. It pulls everybody in the New York Times. The PR firm's Brian Friedman must be having an absolute field day. According to reports, the lawsuit was filed in September with Blake's company Vanzon as the plaintiff. The purpose to subpoena allegedly incriminating text messages from Baldwin's now ex-PR team without Lively's name being attached. Justin's former publicist Stephanie Jones and her company Jones Works received a subpoena from New York attorney Samantha Kotza requesting all documents and communications regarding Baldoni, Lively, and her husband Ryan Reynolds. What's more, court documents accused up to 10 individuals of harming the plaintiff's business and reputation. For those of you who are just jumping back into the case, here's a brief rundown of everyone involved. Thanks to Candace Owens, they start making this movie, and Jones Work PR, which is run by Stephanie Jones. She's a Coffee and Adderall is Life woman. Okay, is doing the PR for Wayfarer Studios. That's Justin Baldoni. Steve Sarowitz, she is doing her firm is doing the PR for this film, but she's not personally managing that PR. She has someone under her named Jennifer A.L., who you see there, and she is dealing with this quote-unquote smaller account. And by smaller account, I mean that while Stephanie Jones is out flying around with Jeff Bezos and his soon-to-be wife Jennifer A.L. is dealing with this little baby account that only earns them $20K a month for the firm. Jennifer A.L. decides that she wants to leave this firm and she wants to start her own firm. Justin Baldoni and Steve Sarowitz are like, we're going with you if you're going independent because you're the only one we even know at this firm, and we were happy to stay your little account. And Stephanie Jones is like, nah, that is not happening. I am Stephanie Jones. I'm married to a bigwig over at WME. No one leaves Stephanie. I mean, we're talking like toxic relationship with your employer. And while Jones handed over private messages between former staff member Jennifer A.L., who was working with Baldoni, and PR crisis manager Melissa Nathan, and yes, this is a big deal, Blake's been using the text as the basis for everything. It's how she justified the smear campaign accusations in August 2024. The text messages were all on a device that Jones had to hand over to the attorney and showed Abel and Nathan discussing their plans for taking down Blake Lively. An alleged text from Nathan read, "We can bury anyone." And then these exact texts were featured in a New York Times expose published in December 2024. But here's where things get interesting. The lawsuit that gave Blake ammunition was withdrawn on December 19, 2024, a few days before she filed her mistreatment complaint concerning Justin with the California Civil Rights Department. Coincidence? Fans think not. Attorney Ron Zamarin referred to the tactic as super shady. He said they intentionally did this to really work in a very surreptitious and clandestine way. Baldwin's attorney Brian Friedman was on the same page as well. He said Ms. Lively's and Mr. Reynolds's company Venson had nothing to do with this case, and they knew it. This sham lawsuit was designed to obtain subpoena power without oversight or scrutiny, and in doing so denied my clients the ability to contest the propriety, nature, and scope of the subpoena. There is nothing normal about this. Officers of the court have a duty of candor to the court and an obligation not to file fictitious lawsuits that have no basis in fact or law. This was done in bad faith and constitutes a flagrant of process. But Blake, well, surprise, surprise, she's having her lawyers work overtime by telling the media that there was nothing shady behind the lawsuit. Attorneys Ezra Hudson and Mike Gotadal told Deadline, "There is nothing untoward here, just conscientious and thorough investigation." The Lively parties acted upon reliable information and employed common tools such as due lawsuits and civil subpoenas that are entirely lawful and appropriate for pursuing claims and uncovering the identity of unknown perpetrators of unlawful activities, and this lawsuit unearthed the Wayfarer parties' documented plan in their own words in their own text messages to destroy Blake Lively, a plan which they executed without transparency, disclosure, or notice to Ms. Lively or the public. Instead, acting in a way they thought would be untraceable. We have absolutely nothing to hide. Ms. Lively voluntarily disclosed the subpoena in her first filing, knowing that it would ultimately be produced to the Wayfarer parties in discovery. And that is precisely what will happen as Ms. Lively's claims move forward in the proper litigation process. However, fans don't believe the long explanations from Blake's side when she first filed the lawsuit. Abel admitted she and Nathan were prepared for it as its job to be ready for any scenario, but we didn't have to implement anything because the internet was doing the work for us. In a since deleted post on Facebook, not to mention that the entire mess makes way more sense now that everything's been exposed. In the beginning, when that New York Times article was published along with the incriminating evidence, fans simply couldn't figure out how Stephanie was able to hand over that information to the actress in the first place. There was this missing piece of what Stephanie Jones was saying, that she was complying with a subpoena, and now it all fits. Not to mention Vanson's lawsuit on Blake's behalf didn't mention Blake and her husband once in the court documents. It's almost like they didn't want to be tied to the case in any capacity, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Fans have been looking at the Vanson lawsuit under a microscope, and here's what they found. The legal team who filed the lawsuit actually has a history of pulling these types of moves. We are talking about ML Management's partners, the registered agent for Blake's company in particular. FYI, it's a CPA firm that files business documents on an annual basis, manages taxes and payments for clients. In simple words, they do everything for their clients that can pay up. Over the years, they've bagged some big clients like Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock, and Ryan Reynolds. Safe to say there's a big name in the game. With the introductions out the way, you also need to remember what a registered agent is. It's a designated person or entity that receives official legal documents on behalf of the business, like lawsuits, legal notices, or tax-related paperwork. Basically, they're in charge of the paperwork and nothing else. Apart from that, there's also another thing we needed to focus on. Remember how we said that Vanson's lawsuit did not mention any of the people they suspected? Instead, they mentioned a long list of Jane Does, and that's not exactly uncommon, mentioning the defendant's name along with some D's actually standard practice for some cases. It gives the lawyers a chance to bring in more people during the trial if they need to. However, what's not common is not naming the defendants at all, which is exactly what the Vanson lawsuit did, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. The lawsuit can't even be found in the Supreme Court of County of New York, where it was filed in the first place. Why? Well, because the people who wrote that subpoena did not want fans to go digging through their backyard. It was written vaguely with no mention of a requested judicial notice, meaning there was no judge assigned to the case. They're trying to work backwards to legitimize something that they likely stole. So I'm going to read you directly from the sham lawsuit. It writes, it accuses the 10 Jane Does of, quote, they have participated and may continue to participate in efforts to harm plaintiff, including by failing to act in plaintiff's best interests, taking actions to their personal benefit at plaintiff's expense, failing to freely communicate with plaintiff regarding matters that impact plaintiff's business and reputation, and disclosing to third parties and failing to keep strictly confidential plaintiff's confidential and or private information. This is just words like Samantha Katz. Okay, was just typing words, but why would the firm and Blake need to go to such lengths? Well, Jessica was actually called into Stephanie's room right before she quit her job. She was pressured into giving up her devices. That's how Stephanie got her hands on the information. Chief level, I think it was the CEO there. She's got Security, and she's like, we need your phone because we have a subpoena that we're complying with and we're taking your personal phone. Jennifer Abel's crying. She's like, I've had this phone number since high school. What do you mean? It has all my pictures, my Facebook, everything. And she's like, nah, hand over your phone right now. It's going down like this. Okay, the craziest part, this is not one of those schemes that Blake and the company or Stephanie would have been able to cook up on their own, and that's where the LLC comes in the pair and everyone else involved had actually done more.